Today we're reviewing a really fucking good album. Hello fellow YouTubers and music listeners, welcome to the Music Corner. A few days ago, 8th of December, it was the 41st anniversary of Public Image Limited's debut album, First Issue. So today, I thought that we should go over and review this album, since it is such an amazing album. Now, I know in my last video, if you're just watching these videos for the entertainment rather than the actual reviews, I did mention that my next album review would be Absolutely by Madness. Which is true, I want to do that, and that will probably be one of my next ones. Probably my next one. But I just wanted to review this since it was its 41st anniversary the other day. So yeah, Public Image was John Lydon's band. After Sex Pistols. If you know of the Sex Pistols, they released one album, basically kickstarted a whole generation. They started the punk movement, but they had to disband because of the record label. So much stress with the band, they just broke up after one album. They did a film soundtrack called The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, but it's horrible. I hate it. And they've done, like, Spunk, which was their demo album. So, two of the members, I think Glenn Matlock and, I think, Paul Cook, I'll correct myself if not, went on to do a band called The Professionals, I believe. And that's another sort of punk band. I haven't listened to them, but I'll definitely be giving them a listen at some point. Whereas John Lydon went on to form Public Image Limited, which wasn't really a punk band at all. The most punk songs that they did do come from this first album. It's still got some punk influences, but it's really not punk rock. And this is post-punk, and people say if Sex Pistols basically invented punk, they didn't, because there was the Damned before and the Ramones, but if they kickstarted punk, Public Image invented post-punk and kickstarted that with bands like Joy Division, Echo and the Bunnymen, Susie and the Banshees, them joining all later with Public Image. I've never listened to any of the bands I just mentioned, like the other post-punk bands, but I don't think they sound like Public Image, because Public Image, I've never heard anything like them. So, who's in this band? Well, as I said before, you've got Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols, but now he got his name back. He wasn't allowed to have his name back for some reason. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but if I learn, then I'll tell you in my Nevermind the Bollocks review, because I will eventually get to that. So it went from Johnny Rotten as the Sex Pistols to John Lydon with Public Image Limited. John Lydon is his real name. Johnny Rotten was a stage name. He obviously, formerly in the Sex Pistols, he does all the vocals on this album. I think some other members chip in on Fodder Stomp, but he does the main vocals and throughout the whole thing. He provides a bit of piano on the Religion too, but it's horrible. It's just him randomly bashing keys, and I really wish it wasn't in the song. But yeah, there's also Keith Levine on guitar, and Keith Levine was formerly in The Clash, so he's another punk, basically. He really, I don't think he could play guitar very well, but it really does work for Public Image. You got Jar Wobble on bass, it's on the back. I don't think he knew how to play bass either. I've heard that he didn't know how to play bass, but the bass lines on this album and every Pill album are just amazing. I know Jar Wobble wasn't on every Pill album, and he's not really on too many, but on this album, their second album, the bass lines are mental. They're just so good, yet he didn't know how to play bass, and I don't think he tuned his bass guitar that often. Same for Keith Levine's guitar, didn't tune it really. Then you got Jim Walker on drums, who's a solid drummer, to be honest. This drumming is still perfectly fine, there's nothing wrong with it, it's still really good. And yeah, it's just drums. He didn't really have a style. It was just random sort of drumming. Now the cover art is an image of John Lydon. He looks mental. He looks so much like a psychopath, doesn't he? It's mocking the sort of magazine style. I don't know if it was mocking any magazine in specific, because it's got the big title and the first issue, and then it's got some songs as if they're really good headlines. It's not all the songs, it's just sort of mocking headlines that are featured in the album. So it looks like a magazine cover, you know. He'll be there to represent like a model, but he's not really a model. He looks crazy. But on the back you've also got this cover, which is the same sort of thing. It's got like, it's not got the songs at the bottom, but it's just saying stuff like, recorded in England, September 1978, all songs written by Pill, all songs produced by Pill, songs played by Pill. Pill would like to thank absolutely nobody. So there you go. And so that's Jah Wobble. Took me ages to figure that out, though. I know it looks like him in the face, but Jah Wobble don't really look like that usually. I guess he had his hair slicked back for the photo. I think this is mocking Time magazines, because they put Pine, Public Image Limited. So, yep. It's also got some other covers on the inside. This is the album sort of slip thing. That's Jim Walker with Pill in the top corner. And that's Keith Levine with Pill at the top. They're not as good, and I think they could have gone with that cover, or any of these covers, and just edited them a bit. But I think they had to go with John Lydon, because he was notorious for being such a rebel with the Sex Pistols, that it would just be good advertising to have him on the cover. So the track listing isn't actually mentioned anywhere except on side 2 of the vinyl, because side 1 is actually just the Pill logo. So let's talk about the songs, actually. So the album kicks off with a 9-minute, mostly random instrument, like the instruments are being random. But yeah, it starts off with a song called Theme, which is mostly random. I don't think they really wrote it. They might have done a riff and just sort of kept putting spins on it whilst John Lydon wails, "I wish I would die, no return," or something like that. It ends with him just saying terminal boredom. I don't think the lyrics were written either. I think he just had an idea in his head, just started shouting them. I think you're meant to feel like how John Lydon feels. I think it's meant to be sort of satirical or a joke song, because it's really boring with how long it is and how it's just, there's no change. It's just, "I wish I could die," and stuff like that. It really makes you think that whilst you're listening, but I think it's meant to be ironic, and that's meant to be the point. Pill were a genius band for doing stuff like that. The next song is Religion 1, which is just John Lydon doing sort of a priest thing where they announce like, "Oh, God will take care of you," and stuff like that. It's John Lydon doing that sort of thing, but criticising the hell out of Christianity. His lyrics on Religion 1 and 2 are crazy. And I don't even think you could do that nowadays. So to do it back then is just great. And they still play that song live, which gets to, like... I'm not against the song, I actually agree with a lot of it. If you like religion, if you're Christian, I don't mind. I don't care at all, you do you. But a lot of the points he brings up are valid, and they're actually true, because he was a Catholic as a kid, and they used to think that he was possessed by the devil, so beat him with a ruler just because he was left-handed, and his mother was dying, and they stopped caring about, like, the church stopped caring about her when she started dying, regardless of all the money that she'd paid them. So he must have really hated Christians for that. Not Christians, but the church, so he just wrote songs criticising them. As it gets to Religion 2, then you get instruments. The lyrics are said a bit differently. A fat pig priest, some pretty dark lyrics for really critical of religion, and I don't think you could do it nowadays. Um, but yeah, Religion 2 is probably my favourite song on the album. The only thing I hate is when John starts playing the piano, because he's not actually playing it. I don't know if he can play it, but he just bashes random keys and goes up and down like that. Doesn't sound good. Then I think we get to Annalisa. Annalisa is an amazing song. It's more of a pop sounded song, but it's really angry. Can't get it back in. John Lydon on Annalisa, he screams. Now, Pill rarely do that, but I think he was just trying to give the point that this song, Annalisa, is a bit darker. I've heard it's about based on a true story of, again, sort of anti-Christianity, but like some parents thought the girl was possessed by the devil, so they left her in the attic to starve to death. Again, just stupid. So I guess he just wrote a song about it, called it Annalisa, and it is an amazing song. They play it live, and it's brilliant live. The guitar riff, bass riff, it's just mental. The song Public Image, the only single from the album. Public Image, it's a really good song, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't fit the album. It should have been on the album. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been on the album, but it's a single, and I think they went against themselves here because it sounds like a single. It sounds like a normal new wave song, a normal post-punk song, whereas the rest of the album's got its own style and sort of anti-music. They made music that didn't exist, but Public Image just sounds like a normal pop song. I don't think Public Image should have been on the album, but it doesn't sound like the rest of the album. It's a bit jarring to listen to if you're listening to the album as a whole. That's my thoughts. I love the song. I know a song on guitar, it's amazing. The tune's amazing. John Lydon's singing's amazing. The bass line's amazing. Everything is great, but it's not like any other song on the album with how it sounds more radio friendly. We're moving on to Low Life, which is a song about, to me it sounds like it's about Malcolm McLaren, the guy who messed up the Sex Pistols. But it's apparently not. It's apparently about Sid Vicious. John Lydon loved Sid Vicious, and I feel really bad when I see a clip of John Lydon crying over Sid Vicious dying, and he gets really angry at Sid's mum. This song's sort of in memory of him. It's critical, but I think that's how they wanted it, you know. It's calling him a lowlife, but that's who he was, and they loved him for it. But I think it could have connotations of Malcolm McLaren being genuinely angry at him, calling him a lowlife, egomaniac, traitor, and stuff like that. It's a really good song. Again, it sounds more pop, but it's also, I think, yeah, this song sounds like EMI. If you listen to EMI by the Sex Pistols, and then listen to Low Life by Pill, they sound incredibly similar. I think it's probably the chords, or I think Low Life's main riff is the solo of EMI. I think that's true, but I don't know if it's been confirmed, but they sound very similar. Which could also be intentional if it's about Sid Vicious or Malcolm McLaren. Moving on to Attack, probably the most aggressive song on the album, next to Religion 2. Attack, I feel, is I don't know the meaning of it, but I feel it's like a sequel to God Save the Queen by Sex Pistols or Anarchy in UK. They're really, really criticising whoever they're talking about. They're just saying, criticising whoever they're talking about. I think they're probably criticising the Queen and the monarchy again, but since this wasn't a single, it didn't really take off. The mixing on this song is sort of weird, the production is as well. It's got a lot with reverb and echo on John Lydon's voice. Well, reverb, which isn't bad, it sounds good, but it's a bit weird. You can't understand what he's saying at times, and he really does scream the attack thing. Attack, 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 attack. I think it's the fast. Yeah, it's the shortest song on the album if you class it. If you don't class Religion 1 as a song. Moving on to Fodder Stomp, the final song on the album. One of the more interesting songs on the album. Not to listen to. It's really boring to listen to, but that's why it's interesting to know about. It's intentionally boring. I think they finished the album. The record label were like, "No, you're not finished. It's not a half an hour long. It won't do well." So they made Fodder Stomp, which is, instead of making a few more songs to fit on the album, they made Fodder Stomp, which is sort of an intentional filler track. It's 7 minutes of the same bass line repeated over and over. Really good bass line, but it's repeated over and over. Mocking pop songs at the time and mocking dub music, especially, which isn't as much of a thing now, but in the 70s, I guess it must have been. It's just John Lydon, Keith Levine and Jar Wobble, maybe Jim Walker, I don't know. They're just shouting, "We only wanted to be loved," and then eventually it gets to a point where they start screaming it. Like, you can hear they're probably going to break their vocal cords with how harshly they scream it. Especially John. And then they start mocking people who made it that far in the song. Like, 'cause it's 7 minutes of the same thing. Like, when I said themes repeated, the guitar riff sort of changes. This is the same the whole way through. It's just repeated over and over. And they keep mocking the listeners. It's thirsty work, this, isn't it? It's boring. They just keep saying like stuff like that it's boring to listen to, and the listeners are sad for listening to it that long. So they did that just to sort of have a jab at the record label for making them put more songs on. They just, instead of doing a few little ones, they did a really long, boring one. Doesn't devalue the album though. I do like Fodder Stomp. When I initially heard it, I thought, this is horrible. It's so boring, it never ends. Which is what they want you to think, since they didn't want it on there. But now I listen to it, I get the point, I get the joke, and it's a good song. I hate to say it, but it's a good song, to be honest. Just really boring and long. So, initial thoughts when I heard this album, I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it, and I was always going to give it re-listens, but when I first heard it, coming off the Sex Pistols, it confused the hell out of me. It doesn't sound anything like the Sex Pistols. It doesn't sound like any other music. It sounds like if I just picked up a guitar and started doing that while screaming and stuff. With really good bass lines. Jar Wobble, Jesus. But as time goes on, you really do, like, ease into this album, and I listen to it a lot more frequently than Nevermind the Bollocks now. I don't think it's a better record than Nevermind the Bollocks, but you start to listen to it, you understand it, and it sounds more normal than it should do. But when you first hear it initially, you're confused as hell, as I was. Especially hearing Metal Box, like, that's really weird. You think this album's weird? Their second album, Metal Box, or second issue, whichever one you want to call it, is really strange. I've got it here. I've got the CD version. This one's really strange. But yeah, overall, class album. It lives up today. 41 years. I hope they remaster it like how they did with Metal Box and album. I hope they release like a big box of it, or something that looks like a magazine. That would be funny. Or just release a magazine with that as the cover, and have like a lot of information about the album inside. That would be cool. But yeah, Public Image strayed away from this sound after 3 albums. Sort of their 4th album was sort of a transition into more new wavy stuff when John Lydon moved to America. But this debut, incredibly strong. I love it. I'm not going to give it a ranking because if I do that, then I'll be contradictional later on. But overall, I really recommend this album. If you haven't listened to it and you're watching this review for entertainment, go listen to this album. I think the whole thing's on YouTube, and there's the CD. I got a HMV, so it's really common, really cheap album. It's not like you can't find it anywhere, you know. It's been remastered. But if you want to listen to it, it's all on YouTube. The CD is really cheap. Vinyl, though. Get the vinyl. It's so good. Another little thing, if you want to get into Pill, I got into Pill from just listening to the first album. But if you want to get into them, I really recommend this. It's a compilation album. Probably not their most recent one. It's from the 90s. This is a really good starter. It's got all the singles from Public Image up to Don't Ask Me. Every song on here is amazing, except Warrior, in my opinion, is a bit meh. But, yeah, this is a good one as well. So if you want to get this compilation album, it's really cheap. I got it for like £2 on eBay. I really recommend it if you want to get into Public Image. But, overall, just listen to the discography. Even if you get this, listen to the discography. It's great. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this review. I know it's a bit freestyle, but that's how I am with videos. I'm a bit more freestyle than scripted. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Stay epic.